A little while ago, I was playing around with some glitches on version 1.01 of Dark Souls Remastered. I loaded in on the placeholder character I had made, and this happened. I had somehow corrupted my character and caused them to load in at soul level 0 with 0 in every stat, 100 HP, and no stamina. Because I had spawned in at the starting point of the DLC, there wasn't much I could do other than say hello to the Guardian. Upon spawning back in, the asylum's opening cutscene started playing, and I was back in the cell. Due to having 0 stamina, I couldn't climb the first ladder of the game, so this is where my adventure would end. But I was intrigued by what had just happened. I wanted to know how it happened, and if there was anything else I could do with it. And that brings us to the topic of this video. So first off, how do we create one of these soul level 0 characters? Turns out it's actually pretty easy. All you need to do is create a character on the current patch version of the game, then switch over to version 1.01 of the game, and load that character. If you're on PC, you just need to swap over to the version 1.01 executable. You don't need all of the files. Loading the current patch character on the old version of the game will corrupt the character's data and cause them to go straight to soul level 0. Now that we've got our level 0 character, what can we do with him? One of the more interesting things you can do is pick up items. When you pick up an item, it'll appear in your equipment slots. I have no idea if this has any effect outside of being a visual bug, but it's interesting nonetheless. As for things you can't do, it's anything that requires stamina. Obvious ones include attacking, running, rolling, jumping, and getting on ladders. But some actions that don't necessarily use stamina will still require stamina to perform, such as weapon toggling and using items. Now, some of you are probably wondering, is it possible to beat the game at level 0? No, you can't even get to the gargoyles during the first bell. Even if you somehow got past the gargoyles, there's ladders leading up to the bell, so you still wouldn't be able to ring it. There actually is a way for us to get to Anor Londo though, which I'll cover shortly. But even once you're there, there's another required ladder, so you're still stuck. When you corrupt a character, almost all of their data is lost. Stats, items, appearance data, name, progress, all reset. The one thing that isn't reset, however, is the map they're currently in. We can take advantage of this to spawn at the default point of any map. This is how it's possible to get to Anor Londo. But this also makes it possible to start the game in the kiln. Because the character's data is corrupted, boss data is reset, and we're technically in the kiln having defeated 0 bosses. We can't beat Gwyn once we're here, and using save corruption wouldn't be allowed for a legitimate one-boss run anyway. It's just a fun fact. So beating the game is off the table, but are there any bosses you can beat at level 0? Well, getting to most of the bosses is basically impossible. But if we ignore that and just treat this as a theoretical if you could get to the bosses question, there's actually a few. First up is the Taurus Demon. The strategy here is pretty simple. Get the right RNG and have him jump off the ledge. Basically, all of his attacks can be avoided just by walking around him, but you're still at the mercy of getting the right attack at the right time. It took a handful of tries, but eventually I got the right RNG, and won without doing much of anything. Taurus is the only boss that's possible to beat on your own. We'll need help to deal with any of the others. In order to get help, we'll need to become human. As I showed earlier, it isn't possible to use humanity from your inventory, so we'll need to find another way. Fortunately, there's another mechanic in Dark Souls where if enough enemies in an area die, you're awarded soft humanity. We can't attack enemies ourselves, so we'll need to rely on something like the Drake taking out enemies for us. Doing this legitimately would take forever since we can't climb the ladder at the bonfire, so I used external tools to warp back up. A handful of runs later, I had my one soft humanity, went to the bonfire, and successfully became human. Now that we're human, we can attempt any boss with an NPC summon. My immediate thought for the first boss was the Moonlight Butterfly. Beatrice destroys it normally, so it's probably not that bad, right? Wrong. I was very, very wrong. As it turns out, the butterfly's fast double attack is really hard to avoid when you can't dodge. On top of that, sometimes Beatrice would just stop attacking for whatever reason, and extend the fight longer than it should have taken. The butterfly's homing attack is possible to avoid pretty consistently by walking around it just as it's about to hit you, but that's the majority of control you have over this fight. Outside of that, you're mostly at the mercy of RNG. I'm not joking when I say this fight took over 100 tries. Next up, we have the gargoyles. If you rescued Lautrec, both he and Solaire are available for this fight, and they won't have any trouble. Lautrec and Solaire are again available for the Gaping Dragon, but they never even came close on their best attempts, so I'm going to say this one's a no. After that, we have Quelaag and our friend Maneater Mildred. Sometimes Mildred just gets stuck in Quelaag's lava pools, but when she doesn't, she's pretty good at taking down Quelaag. Give her a handful of attempts, and she'll eventually succeed. The Iron Golem is up next, and we have Iron Tarkus with us. Tarkus won't have much trouble here, so the fight is basically free. Solaire is back again for Oendes. You can get to phase 2 somewhat consistently if you distract Smo, while Solaire deals with Ornstein. Unfortunately, that's as far as I ever managed to get. I still think there's a chance this fight might be possible with a lot of luck, but I never really got that close on phase 2. It also might be possible by going into phase 2 with Super Ornstein instead, and having Ornstein fall out of the map by grabbing Solaire in the right position. However, this would probably take hundreds of attempts to get even once with the extreme luck involved, so I didn't bother. The Centipede Demon comes afterwards, and like Ornstein, he can also fall out of the map. It's much easier to pull off against the Centipede Demon though, so that's the strategy I went for. Lure him over to the left side of the arena, wait for him to grab Solaire, and watch the magic happen. If he doesn't fall completely out of the map, just stand close to the lava fall, and he'll walk the rest of the way off. Next we have Pinwheel. Push Leroy down into the arena, start the fight, and enjoy the victory. Beatrice is available once again for the Four Kings, but calling her unhelpful would be an understatement. The absolute best result I got out of her for this fight was hitting one of the kings once. Seriously, that's the best she ever did. Most of the time, she just stands around waiting to die. The only DLC boss with a summon available is Manus. Unlike every other summon in the game though, Sif's summon sign is inside the boss room. Trying to stay alive long enough for Sif to actually enter the fight proved to be a challenge on its own. Even if you do manage to stay alive long enough for Sif to enter the fight, Manus will still switch focus back to you, and you're not likely to survive for long. So I'm gonna say this one isn't possible. Our boy Solaire is back for the final fight of the game, and he struggles here. Based on the damage he was doing, I was pretty sure he could win with the right luck, but it took far more attempts than I was expecting. Along the way, a couple interesting glitches happened. One time, Gwyn got stuck in the wall. Unfortunately, Solaire didn't seem to be able to hit him, and eventually lost interest. I couldn't find a way to make him fall out of the map or anything like that either. so it just ended up being another failed attempt. Another time, Gwyn blasted Solaire out of the arena, where Solaire proceeded to fall off the map to his death. After multiple hours of attempts, I decided to stand beside Solaire at the beginning of the fight instead of hiding behind the rock on the left, and this happened. He had done it. I have no idea if the different strategy at the start made a difference, or if it was just pure luck, but Solaire beat Gwyn and brought us up to 8 bosses defeated at Soul Level 0. Now for another question you might have, is it possible to beat the game at all on one of these characters, even if we're allowed to level up? Well, let's find out. I started off by corrupting my character at Sen's Fortress. The default location of the area is just outside of the gate, so we have quick and easy access to the Undead Parish bonfire, and from there, most of the game's map. Having access to a bonfire immediately is important, as otherwise, if we died, we'd be sent back to the asylum cell and be soft-locked. Walk your way to Firelink, pick up the humanity, and save and quit in front of the lost item chest, so we can get the dark sign when we load back in. We'll need a total of 657 souls to level up. Normally this would be trivial to get, but since we can't use items or attack enemies, we'll need to get creative. For my strategy, the first step was heading into the Burg. The only thing we can do is walk around the enemies along the way, so you basically just have to hope they don't do a jumping attack as you pass by them. Fortunately, we don't need to go too far into the Burg, we're just here to trigger the Drake's event. After that, surviving is optional. Now for the fun part. We need to make it to the Drake's Bridge. The first step is avoiding the enemies outside of the parish. Walk around them and try to not get sniped by the crossbow hollow. When we cross the small bridge, the Balder Knight will take notice of us, so we're going to employ the only defensive maneuver we have, saving and quitting. Continue forward from there, and save and quit again when you drop to the stairs. Stay close to the left when you load back in, and try to not get sniped. Dying past the gate will mean you'll need to open it on the next attempt. Fortunately, the lever grants you iframes, so we're safe while doing so. The most reliable strategy I had for getting past the archers was walking in a straight line until both of their bolts hit the ground. Climb on the ladder leading down to the rat room, and be ready to quit out when you hit the ground. When you load back in, hope you get good rat RNG, and the nearby one doesn't just immediately attack. When you do get good rat RNG, immediately run outside and save and quit again. The hard part is finally over. Bait the spear hollow off of the ledge, then proceed forward to the stairs leading up to the bridge and save and quit once more. Head up top and get the Drake to blast everything with fire. We'll still be a couple souls short, so bait the other hollow under the bridge off the ledge, and we're ready to level up. Leveling any stat will bring us up to 400 HP and 80 stamina. The only skill that actually gives us additional benefit for leveling right now is Endurance for an extra equip load point. But of course, if I could only level up one stat, I was going to do the most important one. Now that we have stamina, the actions we couldn't do previously will work like normal, and it's possible to beat the game. Head back to Firelink and grab the fire bombs. While we could do a consumable only run at this point, that isn't the reason we're grabbing these. There are surprisingly 2 weapons we can use with level 0 stats, and we'll need these to get them. Head into Darkroot Garden and grab the longbow along the way. Don't forget like me and have to come back later. Continue down to get the Grasscrest shield, then proceed to the Valley of Drakes. Grab the soul of a Proud Knight and the large soul of a Nameless Soldier. While we're in the area, it's also not a bad idea to grab the key to New Londo Ruins and the red Tearstone ring. Head over to Andre and use the brightness dupe to use 99 of the Nameless Soldier soul. Buy 999 wooden arrows, and use the prompt swap glitch from the standard arrows to the longsword to buy 999 longswords. Bringing up a prompt on the longsword afterwards will store a quantity of negative 998 in memory. We can then use the brightness dupe to drop negative quantities of our Proud Knight soul, fire bombs, and humanity. We're now prepared to get our first weapon. Return to the Berg and jump through this gap in the wall. From there, climb on the nearby ladder, then back off, and turn around as your character finishes fully standing up. You'll end up on top of the ladder, where you can then roll out of bounds. Follow the tunnel and drop down to enter the depths. From here, we'll need to make a tight jump to get onto a tunnel, and if you throw a firebomb a bit to the left of the end of the tunnel, you can break the barrel Laurentius is trapped in and free him. Return to Firelink and dupe some souls. Get the Pyromancy Flame from Laurentius and upgrade it to +15. Afterwards, head to Quelana, ascend the Pyromancy Flame to +5, and buy Great Combustion. Our next problem is dealing with the fact that we have no attunement slots. Fortunately, there are 2 rings that add additional attunement slots regardless of level. The White Seance Ring is in the Duke's Archives, which is a bit out of reach. The Dark Moon Seance Ring, however, is just in the Catacombs, and we can get to it no problem. Make your way past the first group of skeletons and drop down to the lower ledge. Although we don't have the stats for our shield, it still functions perfectly fine for blocking. The stats are just for attacking and parrying with it. Continue past the next group of enemies, break the wall, and grab the ring from the coffin. At that point, it doesn't matter if you die or not. With the ring equipped, we can attune Great Combustion, and we're almost ready to get our second weapon. Before we do, we'll need to head inside Sen's fortress. Perform Sen's gate skip by parrying and riposting an enemy close to the second pillar from the bottom of the stairs to clip into the death cam trigger. With the death cam active, Sen's gate won't be loaded, and we can get inside early. Proceed through Sen's like normal to where the boulders stack up, let them break the wall, and grab the covetous gold serpent ring. Return to Firelink and head down to New Londo Ruins. Run through the area until you get to this spot, where you'll want to save and quit. Getting to Ingward is a pain, and even if we did, he wouldn't give us his key since we don't have the Lord Vessel. So instead, use the longbow to aim as high above him as you can, throw a firebomb, then hit him with a feather arrow to aggro him. He'll now keep running against the fence on the building, and you can use firebombs to finish him off. Proceed through the rest of New Londo Ruins and lower the water level. Pop some humanity and equip the gold serpent ring, then it's time to farm some dark wraiths. Although the Pyromancy Flame says we don't have the stats to use it, that only applies to its melee. Casting spells with it works just fine. It'll take 3 Great Combustions to take out a Dark Wraith. The reason we're farming Dark Wraiths is for the Dark Hand. The Dark Hand is the only weapon in the game which has 0 requirements in every stat. They have a base 1% chance of dropping it, which is why we maximized our item discovery. I got incredibly lucky and ended up getting one on my first kill. With everything we need, we can proceed to do a true Soul Level 1 any percent run of the rest of the game. First off, we have the Gargoyles, and they don't stand much of a chance against Great Combustion. Following them, we have Quelaag. She's immune to fire damage, so we'll need to use the Dark Hand to take her down. The Iron Golem follows, and he's a breeze after Quelaag. We can make O and S nice and easy by setting up with the red Tearstone ring and using the trigger skip. I'll link my tutorial of the trigger skip in the description if you're interested in learning it. With that done, we can go to Firelink Altar and perform a Force Quit Wrong Warp to get to the kiln. Set up the red Tearstone ring, and we can lock Gwyn into dodging with Great Combustion for a free victory. And that concludes my adventures with Soul Level 0 characters so far. Give it a try yourself if you're up for a challenge. I hope you found this video entertaining, and I will see you guys in another video.